My partner works in the NHS. She works in a hospital, specifically. She works with old people, in fact, in a hospital. And has done for a long time. Like quite a few years now. Including during COVID. So, I know a little, sort of secondhand technically, about what it was like for healthcare workers during that time. So when we were watching Mr. Robot, which, by the way, if the video's come before, here's a random callback. If that video's coming in the future, you now know that a Mr. Robot video is coming. But when we were watching that on itvx, we saw adverts for Breathtaking, which is based on a book about a consultant's experiences during COVID. And my first thing was like, are you sure you want to watch it? Because you kind of lived it. But it was like, well, it's a different perspective. I was like, okay, fine, we'll watch it. And we watched the first episode, and I remember hating Mike because he was doing the whole, here's the company line, when Abby's trying to say, like, we need stuff, we need to be doing more. And I hated him. I was like, I don't like Mike. And then we saw a later scene where he's talking to the CEO, and he's saying exactly what Abby said, but being told Public Health England says it's fine, etc. You've got enough. And I realised that, the construction of that was so crucial. If they'd have put the scenes in the other order, I wouldn't have had the same reaction. They needed us to go, oh, Mike, what a... insert your own choice of word. And then go, oh no, I'm so sorry. Because that's what this is for. Most people watching it probably haven't lived the experience or lived with someone who lived that experience. Most people watching it will not know that everyday problem of being a healthcare worker in the NHS trying to just get through. That's who this is for. So they want you to be like, yeah, these people like just doing the company line, we could have sorted it out earlier, but in fact, it was all going from above. And I could go on a massive rant about, the people, like the bureaucrats who aren't on the front lines and just don't see anything but data, just numbers. But I'd be here for an hour. So let's just say I have strong feelings about that kind of thing, if you hadn't guessed. But then we watched the second episode. We watched the first two together. There's only 3 episodes, so we watched the first 2 the first night. After that second episode, this isn't hyperbole at all. I needed to just come and sit up here and be quiet. I just needed to not be in that headspace anymore. It affected me so much, and the episode following did as well. The fact that we have not just patients, but staff dying from COVID. Because that's a true thing that happened. I feel kind of awful because I can't remember, and it might be I can't remember because it's not a thing, but I can't remember any deaths that I heard of through my partner from the hospital. For staff anyway. I know people got ill, but I don't think anybody died from it that she knew, which is good. I'm happy with that, but it doesn't mean that it never happened. It did happen. There were healthcare workers dropping like flies, and that's not good. And there's so much in this show that it takes off the real world experiences. There's a scene where they're like, we can't send this patient back because they live in a care home. This is where I said, it's why I said she works with the elderly at the start, because this is valid. We can't send them back because they live in a care home. They will spread it. And this is what was happening. Because doctors have that whole Hippocratic Oath thing. First, do no harm. That is the crucial part of a doctor's whole purpose. And do no harm includes inaction as much as action. Just to be clear. So sending patients home because they don't meet the criteria, or someone's got a higher need, or you're having to basically decide who lives or dies. I mean, technically it's who gets treatment or not, but if in a lot of cases it is a lives or dies. There's one example in the show of a guy with cancer, and because the risk of treating him puts him, at a very high risk category, it's better and safer and more likely to create a favourable outcome if they give the bed that he could have had to someone with COVID who might survive it. The fact that, and again, this is something that I know from my partner's experience, visitors couldn't come in unless it was end of life, and it was restricted to normally 1 visitor. I love in the show, they go, you know what, I'll bend the rules because these children need to see their mum for the last time. All of that kind of thing. It really happened. Again, I didn't live it. I heard the stories. secondhand. And as much as obviously, she wanted to say, I'm sure there was stuff that happened that she maybe didn't tell me about because she didn't want to remember it and maybe didn't want me to have that on me. I'm a very, I'm a very sympathetic person, an empathetic person. I feel things quite deeply. Sensitive, I guess some people would call us. But watching this really brought all that out of me. I really felt for it. We have a doctor whose mom, is being convinced by Facebook and the like, the plandemic and scamdemic, all that kind of stuff. Like, oh, it's not real. And we had people, in the show, like, walking through empty wards because a lot of wards were closed down and everyone was just in, like, ITU kind of things. I mean, ITU they use in the show. It's interchangeable with ICU. I've learned that. It's a critical care ward of some description. But that's it. So a lot of the general wards weren't being worked on. So yes, if you'd have broke into the hospital and walked around, you'd have probably seen that it looks like there's no one there, and it would be like, oh look, they're lying to us. But you didn't go to where everyone is because they'd sealed that off, so you couldn't. There were people moved from their normal places of work to cover the load, and this was all happening, like I say, and people just disbelieving. I remember seeing it, and I was like, yeah, my partner's just walking into work every day, and just being like, let's have another day of making up stuff to. What would be the purpose? I don't even know what the purpose is. To lock people in their homes. I don't know. But she's not the kind of person who would do that. She would not stand for that kind of lying. If she thought that there was no truth to it from her daily experience, she would have said so. She's backed up what is in the show as what really happened. So when you have these people in the show and in real life saying, oh, it was all a ploy, blah, 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 it upsets and annoys a lot of people, myself included. I don't doubt that, there are things that happen that are planned, etc. I wouldn't put it past some of these elites, to be honest. But this is definitely not one of those examples. From everything I saw, from the stuff that I've got second-hand information of, this was a real thing. And we still have the shadow of it now. I was given a COVID and flu jab at the start of winter. I don't know why. I'm not on the list of the conditions that they normally give it for. I'm not going to complain. But maybe it's because my partner works in a hospital. Like, well, yeah, we'll keep you safe as well. Because then I'm also keeping anyone I'm in contact with safe. That's the important bit. That whole herd mentality idea. Or herd immunity, sorry. So, I can't recommend Breathtaking, technically. Which, by the way, clever title. I applaud. But I can't recommend it. Because it does what it set out to do too well. It made me uncomfortable. It made me feel. It made me sad. It made me want to wring the necks of Boris Johnson and Public Health England and all that kind of stuff for not realising just the scope. And obviously this is the British perspective. I know that globally it was pretty similar. There were some countries who did it better, of course, and some who did it worse. But as a general average, this is what it was like. Are these people going to learn? I don't know. That's not what this is for. This is about the show. So yes, the show is a pretty faithful reflection of what happened. And if you've got the fortitude, if you can stomach it, if you can sit there with some very heavy, sad moments, if you can have characters you care about suddenly, potentially going to die because they've got COVID. If you can deal with all that, I would say yes, watch it. But that's it. I can't recommend it. But I can say it's worth watching if you can handle it. So that's what I'm going to say about it. I think that's enough. Yeah, I could go on a massive rant, so I won't. So thank you very much for letting me talk about this. And until next time, as always, take care.